Richards trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease.
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Pod Street Bullies Podcast with your hosts, Derek.
How you gonna get it, Bobby?
John. Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Cody.
What's not to love?
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Pod Street Bullies. My name is Derek.
And I'm John. What's going on, everybody?
And we've got a full house tonight. Both Matts are back. Thank God. Or whoever you praise to. Matt Casey, welcome back, man.
It's so great to be back. I missed you guys. I had a wonderful vacation, but yeah, I'm ready to talk some positive Flyers talk tonight.
There's positive Flyers talk about.
Oh boy.
Maybe, I don't know. Could he? Matt Hoagland. Hoagie, what's up, man?
It's going. I'm a schmuck. I can't spell our freaking name.
I didn't ask how's it going. I said what's up.
I didn't capitalize all of the letters. And
How many of those have you had so far?
I love Scotch. Scotch.
No, it's bourbon. We drink bourbon here.
Love that too. I mean,
Ooh.
bougie. Well, anyways, John, you typically leave these off with a story.
I haven't led these off with a story in like 6 months, dude.
You're overdue then. Let's go. Come up with something.
I mean, Derek and family came to Long Island, New York.
Bob's do Long Island.
And the funniest thing, in case you're going to kick out of this. So he left Friday night and like 5:30, 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
Oh, to beat the traffic? Wise move. Yeah.
So
yeah.
That great Staten Island traffic is going to get you.
So his ETA is like 9:37. It's getting to be, well, I don't know, 8:30, 9 o'clock. I figured I'd shoot him a text just to see how the ride's going. His wife responds. She's like, Derek got us lost in the projects. We have no idea where we are.
No.
He's
Wait,
freaking out.
Are you in the family using flip phones? Like, don't you have Google Maps or something to tell you where
We
you're
had
going?
Google Maps and we're using it. And Tasha's my co-pilot and she did a terrible job. I don't know what else to tell
Was
you.
it the projects in Long Island or was it just like John's neighbor because he lives in a drug neighborhood?
It was like, I couldn't even tell you. It was that crack house down the street from John.
Viceroy Estates, motherfucker.
You literally told us months ago that there was a crack den like down the street.
But it was bought by a bunch of, MAGA people.
Ah, what a shame. Wish I could have visited that place before
Wait, what's the difference?
Anyways.
Yeah, let's
Wait, so hold on. Where did you get lost though? Like where?
So
off
well,
George
like
Washington.
going into this. Yeah. And like it tells you to take this exit, but there's 7 exits off that exit. And I'm just like, and then my kid's in the back, like,
confusing. I'll give that to you. That's confusing.
especially the guy from York, Pennsylvania, getting
Yeah.
off of George Washington.
Right.
It's like
my kid's in the back, like, beep the horn. And I'm like, I am not beeping the horn. in
we're not
New
in
York City.
Podunk anymore, honey.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not happening, buddy. So then we go off to get the exit to your house, and that exit's closed. So we go down about 1.5 miles, get back on, try to hit that exit,
He
like
just got full
going
blown Long Island.
westbound, whatever it was. That exit's closed too. And I'm like, you know what, kid, we're camping out on the highway tonight.
No boy.
You're like Costanza going to the very ends of the Hamptons. Like this is it.
I'm like, I hate it. I texted John. Or when we got there, I'm like, you're coming to visit next time. It's a lot easier to get here.
So ETA 9:37, 10:15. He walks in the door.
Yep. I'm just like, get me a
Half
beer.
hour's not too bad.
That's not terrible, but
It could have been worse.
Kind of like what we were talking about.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, can it get worse? But regardless, no. The real only bit of news that came out of this past week was MacEwen signing. They got him for a year, $925K, which is like a rookie max. So way to go, Mac. like I'm happy for him. I think that it's a decent contract for a guy that, honestly, if someone's going to make 1.5 with a no movement clause, it should have been him. But anyways, in terms of the MacEwen contract, John, what do you think about it?
I mean, I like MacEwen. I think we're going to dive in a little bit deeper to like the whole fourth line makeup. I mean,
Sure.
Doesn't necessarily make sense to have two MacEwens, especially when you're paying one a lot more if you think about it, like relatively. But I think that he was like one of the only positives from the season last year. He is just a Philadelphia style hockey player. The fans just kind of eat him up. And I mean, what are you going to complain about with it being under $1 million? When it was going to arbitration and after the Delorier money, I was a little nervous that he was going to get something like $2 million.
He'll find something to complain about, though. Let's be honest.
Right. So I'm personally happy with the contract. I like Zack MacEwen.
Yeah, and as you alluded to, we'll get a little more in depth about it here after initial reactions. But Hoagie, what do you think about the MacEwen contract?
I like it.
Good.
No, I'm interested to know like what he was asking versus what Chuck was offering. So that's all I have to really say about that. But I mean, he's a guy that we all love. Even when we picked him up off of waivers last year, everybody's from Vancouver was like, "Oh, you're gonna love this guy. Like, he's your type of player," and he proved that to be true. And I'm glad he's back for another year. So
Sure.
hopefully he keeps on rolling this year.
Yeah. How about you, Matt Casey?
Yeah, just echoing. I like it. A 1-year term, that's good for a fourth liner that, I'm sure if push came to shove, we might be able to move him at the deadline if we needed to, but like, what are you really going to get in return?
Yeah.
Under $1 million, can't complain about that. I just, as Hoagie said, he was a positive last year in a room full of just pure negativity and crap. MacEwen was one of the few positives. I like him on the fourth line. I get really nervous when we're in a situation where he goes up to a top 6 role and but
even top 9.
he's a character guy. He sticks up and I like it. I'm glad to see him back.
Net positive. I mean, a guy that you can put on the fourth line, inject some energy into the lineup, can wear the other team's lines down too. Like, he's a spark type guy. He's going to get a fire going, and that's just his style of play. So under $1 million, 1 year, still an RFA at the end of the year too. So if they don't trade him at the deadline, they still have his rights if they want to keep him around. Fantastic. Way to go, Chuck. In terms of fit, though,
did it? Yay!
He's on the way to go, Chuck.
Yeah,
he's like
times too much.
His record this offseason is 1-6 so far.
Yeah. So great record there, Chuck.
He calls up to make a trade. He calls somebody up to make a trade. Just coming off the Zack MacEwen deal. Got him under $1 million. You ready to wheel and deal? I brought on my trade shoes.
Like, yes, Chuck, I'm willing to take your 2023 first round pick and JVR. But in terms of fit, John alluded to it also. We are kind of staring down the barrel of an interesting scenario on the fourth line where it is shaping up to be MacEwen, Delorier, and a guy like Pat Brown. So I'll go to John first because he actually brought this up in the group chat this morning when we thought, what are we going to talk about? Are you comfortable with a fourth line of guys like that?
Well, I mean, the one thing that Chuck keeps saying, right, is tough to play against. They're going to be a tough line to play against as far as physicality goes. I mean, but let's be real, their skill set, it only goes so far. I think that if you had a top 3 lines that could really produce offensively, you can afford to have a line like this. But newsflash, the Flyers don't. So I am a little bit worried that the only thing they're going to be able to do is kind of be physical and, bump some people. But we'll see. I just think that like this is an old school kind of move where we're sticking to this. We're going to be tough to play against thing where we can't really afford the luxury of having a line that's really only committed to doing that.
Sure. It's a tough spot to be in given the talent, quote unquote. Matt Casey, what are your thoughts on a potential fourth line of those 3 guys?
I like it. I think if you go, think of the.
He is the older guy on the show, just so you know.
He's used to the Broad Street Bullies days.
think of a team going in, and it's like the third period, and then like a top line or like a second line, and you're like, oh my god, I got to go against these freaking Neanderthals right now, and like that they're only getting a couple shifts, they're going after you. I think Brown, is good. I also think he's kind of replaceable in that fourth line role. I mean, if there's something we're flush with, it's bottom six forward. So, if you can put in Lazinski, you could put in, even Lawton if he gets dropped down, if God forbid all of us get healthy. Like, that I think it adds a dynamic in there. But I think overall, what it does with Delorier and MacEwen, it allows guys like Cam Atkinson to play a little bit freer because there's going to be just some price to pay if some goon boards him again like they did last year. And so I think overall you're just going to see a little bit more, free skating and not as worried about the goons of the world because we have our goons too.
Yeah, the repercussions.
Right.
Yeah, Hoagie, what are your thoughts on a fourth line like this?
What a 180 flip from what we've had like the past couple of years. From what we had, who was it? Raffle, Bunneman,
Lindblom,
Albay, Kubel, Torinsky, where they were kind of like your nitty gritty guys that kind of just went in and did their jobs, but also had some kind of like offensive prowess to them. That
sure.
They had a lot of turnovers in the offensive zone just on forechecks. This line isn't going to be a forechecking type of I'm going in and trying to get the puck to score. This is going to be a rough and tough, I'm going to kick your teeth in type of line. I like it. It just glares to what where this team is heading. Like not towards success for this year.
Much to Casey's point too, though, like wearing down the opposition, like the top lines. Like, yes, you're going to give some, you're going to be able to take some too, but like freeing up a potential matchup where you've got your first line out there against a third or fourth line from the other team because the opposition's top line or the second line has been worn down by these guys. These are the type of guys you want in there to do that. So I think that's a good point. And if you're going to worry about getting caved in, bringing in a guy like a Noah Cates potentially to center that line over Pat Brown, bringing in a guy like Tanner Lashinsky. If you want to replace a guy like MacEwen or Delorier, putting in a guy maybe at Wade Allison, if he's healthy, you can kind of.
Again, I love that we all snicker at that. Like,
first he has to sign. He has to sign.
Sure.
First.
Oh, that is true. That is true. Maybe I'm just getting too far ahead of myself, but you can supplement quote unquote talent, to make up for that. So I think it's an interesting position to be in, and it damn sure makes this team to be harder to play against. But I do obviously have my concerns, as does everybody, I assume, in this scenario.
Well,
I think. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
All right. Oh, thank you.
Like this guy needs to be told to talk.
I think there's a few things there. One of them is like goons in hockey, especially in the NHL. Like not every team even has one these days. A lot of teams have gone more to we need scoring production from our fourth line.
Can we really categorize them as goons, though? I mean, Delorier has more goals than Morgan Frost in his career. Shout out, Jim.
But like, we're talking about accountability, right? But like, certain teams do all right with just one guy who can cave some faces in. Like we've got two of them, and right. I like the idea of it's like, oh, okay, we could put a Lashinsky, we could put a Cates, but those are people who could provide offensive production if their line mates could do a little something.
Sure.
Like if I'm looking at somebody who's going to center the line, in order for them to be successful offensive, they got to be able to pass it to one of these guys. And like, I don't know enough about Nick Delorier to say that he can't, score on opportunities or provided to him, but from what I've heard, it doesn't sound that great. Like, I just think that on a team that struggles to score goals, this is just even if we're looking at this year's, what is it, a resurfacing or whatever the hell it's called,
Restabilization.
That is what it is.
Retread.
Like, I don't know. I just feel like if you had one of those and maybe two of your younger guys, it just doesn't seem. I mean, again, the Delorier contract just didn't need to happen. Like, that's really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fair assessment. That, like, okay, the Delorier thing, I think every fan is still a little bit perplexed by it, but like, it is what it is. He's on the team. He's on the team, and he ain't moving for a couple of years. So, like, you know, let's get used to it. So I look at realistically what you want from a fourth line like this, and one, anyone who's expecting goals or offense from this, like, go get a frickin' lobotomy. That's not ever going to happen. And I don't care who you know, maybe they'll get lucky and knock a couple in. But, like, I think in order of what you want them to do is, number one, be defensively responsible. Like, you don't want to be a liability on the ice. You want to be defensively responsible. Number two is you want to get the forecheck in and get the opposition pinned down through just nasty forechecking and, you know, body to body contact, which guys like James Van Riemsdyk can't quite figure out, and you know, really just get him grinding and then get the hell off the ice in 45 seconds or less.
Right.
Like that is the goal, and you pin him in and you let one of the talent lines go in on a worn out line. Like that is the you're not going to have four scoring lines. And last year our fourth line, who'd you say it was, like Lindblom at one point, and like it's like
JVR at one point, he was holding up that line.
There's no identity. At least this line has an identity. And it's one that I think is going to play well to the fans. And I think it's one that is still does have value. And I would argue there's a resurgence of value of the guys who can knock the crap out of the opposition.
You got to start somewhere. Like, here, you're starting really at the ground floor. And that's a good place to start. Figure your way out, you know, as you go up. But when you go up, the top six talent, if we want to call them that, but it's something. Again, much to Casey's point, you're establishing somewhat of an identity. And yes, you're going to be harder to play against with a fourth line like that. Can you, again, supplement with a little bit of talent added into that? You know, because we've mentioned it before, and it's well known, Tortorella likes to, you know, get some chances off the rush. So why not maybe bring these guys in, bring in a more skilled, and I say that loosely, center or winger, whatever. And then if you can capitalize with that type of skill and catch them off guard with that in transition, why not maybe try Morgan Frost at center? Is that too far-fetched? I mean, I'm not saying it's going to, you know,
he's
spark
more
his
of a
career.
Playmaker.
He is. Yeah. But I mean, if we're talking in transition, I mean, it might be a decent enough chance to get something out of him.
You know, here's the thing, though, and Hoagie, I'm sorry, buddy. But he's like, I just like to apologize to Hoagie. Makes it seem like I care.
We all know you don't.
I just feel like if you have MacEwen and Delorier on a line, you just might as well go all in on, like Casey said, screw the offensive thing. Like, don't even fake it. Right. Put Patrick Brown there. You know, like, if that's what you're going to do, then go ahead and do it. The thing that kind of stinks.
I remember Patrick Brown last year. Like, was he?
I think
he was hurt,
right?
He was hurt
most of the season.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. He was hurt.
That was half the roster.
Yeah, those are the ones who had good years.
Just like Ryan Ellis, his first 4 games.
But yeah,
that's maybe wishful thinking on my part there.
Yeah, I just think, like, if that's the identity of that line, right? You can, and you go into camp and you're like, well, there it is. Now we just got to figure out the top 9. We know what we got here. All right, like, I guess. I just don't think that obviously we still want this team to win. And I just think that, like, the recipe for winning, I'm a little worried with that being the.
Sure. I also think you have to assume that these guys will get probably 90% of their face-offs in the neutral zone or the defensive zone. Like, they're not getting any offensive stuff. So, like,
absolutely,
you don't want to put Frost in there to, you know, to lose a bunch of defensive
stalwart
zone face-offs. You know,
They'll be the line that, like, starts the last minute and a half when we're down by a goal in the defensive zone, where, you know,
total hackstall move.
Yeah. And AV, he did it too.
He did. Must be. I mean, if AV's doing it, it's got to be somewhat successful, right?
Right.
But also, Delorier and Brown are both penalty killers, right? I can't remember if MacEwen was. I know that's Delorier's MO was he's a penalty killer.
Right.
So it's like, give these guys 10 minutes a night and then wear them down on the penalty kill. Like I'm all for, I think there's value of it. Now we can go pound for pound with the Tom Wilsons and who's
The
that?
Ryan Reeves. Yeah.
Ryan Reeves.
Oh, yeah.
We have some bruisers in the Metro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like as always, we're a season too late. Like the Rangers made that move last year, picking up Reeves. Now we're playing catch up essentially.
And we're going all in. We're putting the
That's why we
chips.
double down.
Yeah.
We've had
it's
to
like-
play catch up. They've lapped us in a rebuild, retool, whatever it is. That's
But
all
like
we
my-
have to do now.
My point is like Chuck Fletcher saw that and he's like, oh, I could do that. And so he picked up MacEwen off waivers. Now he signed Delorier. It's like, sure, it worked to an extent for New York, but like again, here we are playing catch up, thinking like we can replicate what this team did. Has it worked in the past? No, it hasn't. So like, I don't know. Again, we could sit here and gripe about Delorier's contract and this and that, blah 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 blah. Doesn't matter at this point. But the line definitely intrigues me.
I'd rather have the definitive bruiser line versus like kind of
we don't know where to put you kind of
throw
line.
it at the wall. Let's see if it sticks. You know,
But
and like
with these three guys, they know their purpose on the ice. To just go in, beat up on another line, and get off as soon as possible. And like you said, 45 seconds or less. I want less. 30 seconds of just rumble, tumble, bruising.
balls to
Get
the
the
wall.
puck, dump it in, change.
And get your fastest skater in there to get the puck after that. That's all. That's all they know how to do.
Yep,
They're-
and that's fine.
And like you
As
said,
long as they know their role.
don't fake the offensive production. Just go out and do what you know how to do.
we got enough guys who can fake offensive production.
Right, JVR.
Delorier's going, hey, Mac, I'm trying the Michigan tonight.
yo, you saw what Zegers did last year? I'm going to do that. You're going to stand in front of the net. You're going to smack it in.
I'm just going to tip it to you real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that line's got the identity. It's something that this team has needed for a very long time. So it's a start. It's a start in the somewhat right direction, if you want to call it.
It's a start in a direction.
It's a start in a direction. But another aspect and another position, I guess you could say, in which we don't know the direction is at center, which once again, here we are talking about the lack of depth at center. You've got Couturier coming off an injury. Hayes coming off an injury. Lawton could play center. Frost could play center. Like
Could
there's
play.
just could play
Could play.
at the NHL level, I guess I should add. It's just good God, dude. I don't even like this was your baby here, John. I don't even know what to make of it at this point.
By the way, Hoagie, very very sharp on the tags here. Like,
Yeah, that was pretty good. Down the middle
okay.
depth, ... or lack thereof. I believe the ... That's called an ampersand, right? Is that what that's called?
No, the ampersand is the and symbol.
Why are we talking ampersands right now? Let's talk hockey. Come on.
3 dots. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're missing a dot. Anyway, it's similar to the goalie situation. This is just something we're not talking enough about. Like, you have Sean Couturier and Kevin Hayes. Like, I think Sean Couturier is a conversation on his own. Like, he hasn't even started his new contract, and we have no idea what this player is going to be like after this back injury. I mean, it's a big deal. Now, could he come back to the player that he was? Sure. And then we've got a legitimate enough top line center. But then, like, Kevin Hayes is he's like a second line, third line tweener to me when he's healthy. I'd much more rather have him on the third line, but that would be a luxury the Flyers probably would never have. And
Too
then
much
on
money.
the third line.
Too much money.
And then forget it. After those two, it's like you don't even know. I mean, I feel like they have to start thinking, okay, we're going to have to put Lawton at center. I just don't know how confident they're going to be in Morgan Frost, or as they should be confident in Morgan Frost. Like,
He hasn't given him a reason to be.
and if one of those guys gets hurt, we're screwed again. And it's like we're talking about like restabilizing what Chuck could have done. And I do believe that even though they were strapped for the cap, if he was a little bit more smarter with his money, he could have just got something to provide a little more stability at each position. Because the Flyers are in a position right now where if they have an injury at center, we've gotten last year all over again. We've got players who shouldn't be playing, in the lineup where they're going to be. You've got Scott Lawton playing 2C. Sorry, Hoagie, but he just shouldn't be. Travis Konechny, maybe give him a shot. Call Sam Moran. I just think that,
don't forget Joel Farabee. Yeah.
Well, Joel Farabee's hurt.
Right, but still.
I just think, again, if we're talking about a team that's obviously going to want to win games, this is just not a recipe for success.
No, you've got Couturier and Hayes, and then a mishmash of just mediocrity.
Unknown.
Again, I've said it a million times. John said it too. Yes, I'd prefer Scott Lawton on the wing. I think he's better suited for it. I think he's better on the wing. But when you're called into duty like this, and there's really no other option, yeah, sure, you could put Morgan Frost at 3C, but that's at this point everything's a wild card. No one knows. So why the hell not? I just don't know. Add Lashinsky and Cates to the mix. You just I don't know.
I think so much is hinging on Couturier coming back and being healthy and being a player that he was. I don't know what goes into the surgery. It can't be great, but at the same time, we haven't heard anything that's necessarily negative
right.
about
Sure.
it. So I'm optimistic. And John, I get your point. Either Hayes or Couturier goes down, we're in trouble. There's no doubt about it. I think Couturier much more so than Hayes. I think Hayes, we could argue. It's all right, we got to bump somebody up to 2C. It's the lesser of crappy players.
But again, though, it's still who?
Still not
right.
ideal.
We don't have a Derek
it's not ideal.
to bump up into 2C we did last year.
Good point.
But I think with Frost specifically, he's clear. He's on a tryout deal. This is it for him. And I think you have to take the training wheels off and let him play 3C the way that he should be playing 3C, quite frankly. And he seemed to get a little bit of groove last year. We'll see how he does under Torts. But I don't think the Flyers are being ridiculous by saying Frost is going to be our 3C this year. I think if we were further down the road of this restabilization and had a legit shot at making some kind of damage in the offseason, we'd be what are we doing? Gambling on this guy. If we're going to gamble on somebody, let's gamble on him this year when expectations are impeccably low. And we need any success to happen. The core 4 or 5 players of older guys need to play up to form, but we need to have minimum 2 or 3 younger guys who are unproven really step up. And it's this is your chance, man. This is everything you've dreamed of since you were a little kid trying to tie your skates. It's right here this year. And it's kind of put up or shut up time. And we saw it with Patrick. It didn't work out well. I hope Frost doesn't go down that. And I hope he comes out and he's dishing pucks like Giroux was.
Now, what are the chances that Chuck dips back into the waiver wire like he did last summer? Or the end of the summer, I should say.
How do we afford it?
For another Brown or MacEwen?
You've still got to put Ellis on long-term injured reserve. I don't know if you can put Farabee on there for the time being. So it saves you a little bit, and you could stash that away in the AHL when Farabee's back. Let's be honest, Ellis probably isn't coming back. So, they're it's $6.75 million that is essentially off the books. So you might afford yourself a little bit of wiggle room in terms of the cap with a Farabee move to LTIR. But again, I don't know. I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Our friend Sam here, I'm calling her Sam. I don't know if she goes by Sam. Samantha. She just wanted to point out to all of us that we are currently $2.5 million over the cap and still have to sign Allison, though.
I will say, does anyone think Allison's going to make anything other than an $800,000 deal?
I'm wondering why it's taking so long.
Yeah.
Right. Is he an RFA?
Yeah.
He's an RFA, yeah.
So he's going to arbitration, I would imagine?
No. I don't think there's... Yeah, I don't think so either.
Something's fishy here.
He's dead.
I don't know.
He's
dead.
Yeah. Yeah, but the thing is...
I don't know how... what leverage does he have? I like him as a player. I want him on this team, and I want him to do well. But what leverage does he have?
in any other scenario, I feel like we would at least have some insight into, are the Flyers interested in signing him? Are they not? Like with this, I don't know. Like he could walk tomorrow and we'd be like, oh, we didn't know. Or they could sign him tomorrow. We'd be like, oh, cool, whatever. I just don't know.
I'd be pumped if we signed him I've just been a fan of his for the last 2 years, and it's just been like devastating watching what's happening. But like
when he's played,
I guess the gamble is it's like, well, there's a 50-50 shot this guy's going to be on LTIR anyway. So
well, and we were willing to take that gamble with Lashinsky, who has just as much injury history at this. I mean, at the pro level anyway. Like, I don't understand how we wouldn't want to sign him. The only reason I can think is like if he's asking for over $1 million, where you're just like, wait.
On what leg do you have to stand on and say I deserve $1 million?
That's the thing. He doesn't have a leg to stand on.
You know, and but Casey,
I get
like,
that. That was good. That was
to
good.
reel this back in a little bit to you're talking about like Frost centering the third line. I get that mentality, but then there's another part of me that's like, if there's youth on his wings, I would love to have somebody who's just a little bit more proven. Like I'm kind of like, I don't have faith in him, but there are wingers out there like Tippett or, you know, and anybody else really, where it's like, if they had somebody who I knew for sure could dish them the puck successfully, I do think that it would help their development. Like I just worry about the third line being the unproven line and none of them being able to meet their potential.
Like at this point, all we have is GVR to put on that line.
I have no idea what any of that was, just so you know. I'll talk at the same time. Casey, you were going to rebuttal, though.
I think, all right, assuming Farabee comes back in due time, like the line I would like to see on the third line is Frost, Tippett, and Lawton. I think that is a good stabilization line.
Yeah.
And you get different skill sets in there. I think who was everyone pushing on the third line? It was Frost, Tippett, and who did they end with last year?
Was it?
I think it may have been
Cates.
I think it was Cates.
Cates,
yeah.
Hey, if chemistry's there, that's great. But also, it's like, hey, if it's not going to work, let's not force it. And like, you know, you might have to start that way because of the Farabee injury, quite frankly.
Sure.
But I think Lawton, as we said, he's great on the wing. He can jump into center in certain situations. And I just, you know, I think that's a line that's like, that is a good, solid third line that has potential. We have no idea if it's not proven, but like it has potential and it has good skill sets.
See, I'd rather see the Hayes, Tippett, and Farabee line. Like, so that takes Tippett out of it for me. But like, who are you going to put on the wing? You know, that's the tricky part. You got JVR. You put JVR on a line with, who was it, Frost and Lawton. But like, that's not appealing to me. There's so much that you just can't piece together right now.
I can't think of a scenario where JVR is appealing on any line.
True.
Not even the
He was supposed to be gone.
Right.
Like he was supposed to be out of here.
Right.
Yeah. But other GMs were like, no, we're not buying into that BS.
Yeah, obviously. They'd rather take him on at the trade deadline and give up a third, fourth round pick for him.
Now, maybe this is more of a realistic thing if Farabee was healthy, but could you see a scenario where they went, okay, Frost and Hayes, we're going to flip you, and we're going to put Frost on the second line with more skilled, proven wingers and use Hayes as like a stabilizer on the third line? Again, I know you're paying $7 million, but like, I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing that out there.
So who would you put him with? Farabee and TK?
Farabee, Frost, Konechny. I'm not opposed to it.
That's a young.
It's a young line.
Here's my thing.
I mean, you put Atkinson on the second line.
Atkinson's
and
another
TK
good
on the
choice.
first.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can't keep saying Farabee because he's on IR for a while.
That's what I said that beforehand.
So like, I look at that where if that happens, John, I think that's a great sign, quite frankly.
Right.
I think that's showing that Frost is actually stepping up to the plate, and like we can all assume that Tortorella is not going to do it just to boost the guy's confidence or something like that. Like, he's going to do it because it's actually earned, and so I think that's a great scenario if we end up doing that. Then all of a sudden Hayes is a hell of a paid third liner, but I don't care. Like, hey, we don't have to have we'll go back to colors like we are in Mites on Ice. It's like you're the blue line, you're the green line.
Right. Well, I've said
you
that.
know,
You don't need to have a first, second, third line.
No, yeah.
Right.
This team,
Well, good.
Especially
We
when
don't
your
have a
fourth
first line.
especially when your fourth line's playing 5 minutes a night, you'll be able to divvy it up equal enough.
But the other one I'd be interested in. I know we've now just like spanned off centers and now into like hypothetical.
Beautiful.
I would love to just see Allison Tippett Frost on a line together. I think that'd be so freaking fun. And you got Fire and Frost on either side there.
You were
Coin
waiting
the
to say
phrase
that,
now.
weren't
Fire and Frost.
Fire
is the new
and
Legion of Doom.
Oh boy.
Yikes.
Let's not set the expectations too high there.
trademark it now.
Oh boy. No,
That's our
but like
next
to your
t-shirt.
point too, it has its ripple effects because you've got varying levels of experience that you're not gonna want to pair a guy like Frost with rookies, with guys who are in their first or second years. You're gonna want to supplement that with some experience with Hayes, with Couturier. But are they at the same level as those guys? Are you going to depend on, Frost to play on the second line with Farabee, with Allison or Tippett, whoever it might be? You want to balance it out with some experience. And sure, it might not gel. You're going to need to figure out how things are going to work in terms of chemistry. But at the same rate, you can't put – I guess what I'm trying to say is you can't put all your eggs in one basket in terms of, I think this is going to work right off the bat. And it just completely blows up in your face.
There's also a situation where the team might have sat down and talked to Frost and go, listen, we want to bring you back for a year, but we feel like the best chance for you to succeed is on the wing. Like we don't even know. Like that could have been something that happened.
And I'm in that line of thought too. I think his best chance to succeed is on the wing.
Right.
You'd like to think that
So who plays center? Who plays third line center now?
Exactly. That takes another option off the table.
Lawton.
If you're comfortable with it, I think Cates might be a decent third line center. Like I'm not gonna.
He's going to be a part of your third line for sure.
I think he will too. Like I'm not going to get overly excited about it. Like I'm not going to say, "Oh my god, he's going to be a 50-point guy." Like no, but I think he could be effective in that role.
And I'd like to see somebody like Cates with Lawton on the same line because I think that he is
they're very
next
similar.
Lawton. I truly think he's going to be one of those guys you can slide up and down the lineup. Like he's not going to light up the scoreboard, but he's going to give you enough to be like, okay, we can put him here for a few games if we have to.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we talked, I think, about that like the week that he started playing in the NHL with the Flyers, where like this guy reminds us all of Lawton. And I think that's fantastic. Having another guy like Lawton doesn't hurt. What's that?
Minus the serial killer thing.
That too, yeah. I mean, there's still time.
Proven.
Yes,
Allegedly. Allegedly. But I mean, again, it begs the question: you still have the fourth line, and yes, Pat Brown, Lashinsky, if he stays healthy. Like, there's so much to unpack in terms of the center depth and the direction you want to go. It's going to be a carousel. I mean, think back to, was it Vigneault's first year where we played probably 5 or 6 guys on that fourth line center role to try to find somebody that fit.
Right.
Do you guys remember back to that?
It reminds me of the 6-goal a year where it was like, we're just going to,
Elliott, Hart, Stolarz, McKenna, Pickard.
And I know Casey hates this because Casey wants to just be positive moving forward and think about moving ahead. But it's like, I can't help but be like, this was a team that was snake bitten by injuries last year. To me, as somebody who's putting together the team, and yes, I know the money thing is a real issue, but like that's got to be my priority to find some sort of stabilizing depth here, because it's like, who's to say that's not going to happen again? Who's to say that John Couturier is going to make it a full season? I just think that like to not address this in a way where it's like, okay, we've got somebody that we know we could put here.
Yeah,
it's just irresponsible.
No, I agree with you. And like, it's not negative. That's a reality of it. Is that, we just, Chuck wasn't able, as well as I think he tried to do last offseason, he has done exponentially the opposite this season. And, it's tough to see. And I think we're also, from a pure mental and psychological standpoint, we're as a fan base, we're so messed up because like we're like sitting here crapping on Coots. Coots, he's 1 year off or a year and a half off a Selke trophy winning,
Sure.
and he is big question marks. I get it, but like until I see anything different, I'm assuming we're getting an 85 to 90% Coots to start the year.
What has he done to betray our trust? Like,
yeah,
well, I just think people. I mean, for me, I'm just waiting for more injuries. It's like you just look at like what's happening with this team.
You're looking to go into the first 25 games and him going down for the rest of the season.
And let me solve the riddle for everyone. We're gonna have injuries. We're gonna have injuries, but it's a matter of
we're perfect.
Is it going to be detrimental season-ending injuries or multiple injuries at the same time, or God forbid we have quarantine back up and Provorov gets
don't say that word. Don't say that word.
It's circumstances. It sucks. Everyone deals with it. Blah blah blah. But that was an extreme amount of circumstance in there. Now look, I don't disagree one bit that I wish we had addressed at least a little bit more of the center, but
sure.
I'll go back to my original point, man. It's like Frost. This is your moment.
Sure.
Shit or get off the pot. And if he ends up kicking ass and doing well and being getting 15 goals and 20, 25 assists, something like that. Okay. I think that buys him another bridge contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the next contract's 2 years. Okay, buddy, you got 2 more years. Let's see how it goes.
Keep it going.
Do enough to stick around. Do enough to warrant sticking around.
Prove you want to be here.
Ooh,
pretty much.
Getting aggressive.
There you go.
I think Chuck is just putting all of his money on Frost being that 3C type of guy, which is why he didn't go out into the offseason to find that type of guy for our 3C whatever center depth. So it's all on Frost now, like we've said. Prove it or get out of here. And I think in going back to that Flyers Daily podcast, it just didn't seem like he wanted it. So I'm hoping he hits the ice and proves that he wants to be here and just lights it up. I really want to know. I want to know how long of a leash Frost has this year. Are they just letting him go to play his own style of game, or is
that doesn't sound like Tortorella's MO to me?
It doesn't sound like Tortorella either. But I want to know if Chuck is in Tortorella's ear, hey, let him go, let's see what he can do, or he's in his ear saying, no, you got to keep it tight. You can't let him go off.
If you're doing the odds on the first person to get kicked out of the building, it's not Tortorella, it's Chuck.
Right.
It's
Chuck.
So
no, absolutely.
And so in my mind, I think the benefit of hiring Tortorella is that he's gonna run things his way. And not to say I think Chuck was running things with AV, but there were a lot of just decisions made around that fire that were just very questionable, and I think came from higher up than him. But I don't think Chuck is going to be whispering in towards his ear because what did Chuck do to really help him besides hiring him? What has he done to really help him?
Right.
Torts also doesn't strike me as the type of guy that would take that. If Chuck's coming down and being like, "Hey, John, I need you to da 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 da." I could see Torts firing right back and being like, "Chuck, I need you to get the F out of my office."
He's not gonna Billy Bean and be like, "I want so and so at first tonight."
Right. Exactly. They're yeah, you know what you can do with your suggestions. Let me tell you.
Yeah. And I do think that signing the players like Delorier and Braun show that this isn't just going to be we're going to play the kids all year. This isn't just we're going to play Morgan Frost and he's going to be our 3C and we're just going to ride it and see what happens. And we're going to fill in all the unknowns with all the youth. Tortorella is going to take his pieces and he doesn't care if they're the kids or the older ones. He's going to try to figure out what works. And if Morgan Frost isn't working.
I'd go the other way too, where if he doesn't feel like Kevin Hayes is working his way well on 2C, maybe he does get bumped to 3C. Who cares about his salary?
He's not paying him. Right.
Yeah,
he's not paying him. He doesn't care.
On the flip side, too, if you think about it like we alluded to earlier, if we can get a fourth line that is solid, if we can get that, you're solidifying that. So entering next year, you don't need to work on that. You can focus your attention on bringing in a top 9 guy, a top 6 guy, somebody that's more skilled, somebody you can slot into those top roles and not have to worry about, what are we going to do about the 4th line? Can we use a guy like Lindblom like we did on the 4th line last year? Like, can we use a guy like this guy on the 4th line? Should a kid fill that spot? You've got one less thing to worry about entering an off season in which now you can shift your focus and narrow it down to something else and focus on that.
Yeah, I think the other X factor in there, and I mean, good point on the 4th line, but you also have, this is like the question marks with Coots and Hayes and Frost, quite frankly. It's like, okay, what do we have at center this year? These guys are coming off of surgeries. What do we have? Do we need to make dramatic wholesale changes because they're just not cutting it, and we need to cut ties with it and focus on that? Like, I hope that's not the case. Or are all 3 of them solid? Best case scenario, glass half full kind of thing. And all of a sudden, hey, we can go out and try to get a top 6 winger.
And one of the interesting things too, that, trying to go away from like the burning house conversation, is like, I'm really interested to see what Coots is able to accomplish without Giroux. Like, Coots has never had to be like the guy on the line. And I'm not saying he can't do it because I don't know, but like, can he carry a line? Like, it'll be really interesting to see because he's always had Claude Giroux.
Right.
I don't know, man. I go back to 2 years ago where they were like, "Oh, so and so's in a slump. Put him with
He started the COVID year with Lindblom and Konechny, and they just lit it up.
Yeah,
like
towards I'm just curious to see.
Coots was doing it.
Right. I think it's a fair point from like the leadership perspective. I think, are we in agreement that Coots is probably the front runner for captain?
No,
at this point. You don't think? All right.
I think so.
This is probably the front runner. But I think you saw it when Giroux left, and I saw it in the way that Kevin Hayes played, and it's like, oh, we no longer have Captain G to bail us out with a last minute goal. Like, the responsibilities go elsewhere. It was passed on. So I think. My concern with Couturier is he does seem like the quiet leader that we've like kind of
have had for the past 10 plus years.
I want to see Atkinson wear the C.
We did talk about that this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Derek and I both with a little bit of a buzz. We're like, we shouldn't have a captain this season. We should pull a San Jose.
Right? Yeah.
I wouldn't mind it either.
But I just like I mean. If you're like changing the culture and Tortorella is your new culture, then why not put the C on Tortorella's guy? Like, this is I don't know.
You're preaching to Laurier for captain.
That's Fletcher's guy, not Tortorella's guy.
That's a leap.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. In Casey, I do think that it's like Coots is going to be the next captain just because, like, it seems like the succession plan, if you will.
Yep.
Right.
But I think Cam Atkinson just makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
I agree with you. Actually, now that I think about it, I think Atkinson might actually be, and I don't think Coots would be pissed about it. He'd be like, cool.
I don't think he would either.
No. If he's a team guy, if whoever it is a team guy, they're not going to care who wears the C.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Should we place bets on that and be like, all right, each one of us has to choose one person. If it hits, then the other 3 has to buy that person a captain T-shirt jersey.
We should do it like horse racing. Every player gets a certain amount of odds.
That's true.
Right? Like Delorier gets like 80 to 1 odds.
No.
It's so much better than talk. Remember a year ago when those freaking knuckleheads were going nuts about like the goal song? Like, who cares? Who gives a crap? Let's talk about
one of those.
Don't worry, it ain't going to be played too much this year. So
we're still going on about the goal song.
Yeah, a goal song that you heard a dozen times. No, fantastic discussion. I mean, this was something we really threw together last minute, like every episode for the past like 2 months. But anything else to add in terms of the center depth / lack of depth?
Nazem Kadri's still out there.
That'll bolster your depth on center.
Could
how
you
crazy would
imagine?
it be if? Oh, how crazy
Oh
would
my
that
god.
We're crapping on Chuck, and it's like he LTIRs Ellis and then signs Kadri to a 1 year, like $4.5 million deal.
No way.
Is that enough to redeem him for such a terrible offseason?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
be? If you
Oh,
found a
yeah.
way to move JVR in the process, that would be even better.
Oh my
No.
god. I'd sing his praises.
If JVR goes, sure, but nope, I don't want him.
I'd sing him like Whitney Houston. Oh my goodness.
Oh, boy.
It's like John Klimberg just signed a 1 year deal because he waited too long to commit. If Kadri's out there for 1 year,
Well,
I mean, I'm
isn't
sure
he hurt? Isn't that the issue?
No, he came back and played.
Did he?
Yeah, he came back and played. Yeah.
Came back and played. He
Yeah,
scored
I
the
think
game-winning
the
goal in like game 5 or 4 or something like that.
he's getting a little heated.
The first game back.
How do you not
Easy.
know?
How dare you?
Sorry,
Jeez.
I'm not a huge fan of Kadri, but
How
he scored that
dare you.
game winner that nobody
But-
knew went in.
Well, and there was a picture of him getting surgery, but I think that was like a dated picture. Like I think that it was a little confusing. I don't know though.
Yeah.
That'd be great if he just all of a
Be
sudden's
fun.
like just letting everybody shit on him, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, just signed Kadri for $4.5 million for the year."
I'm going to the shore. See you guys later.
Sure.
We'll see you in a month.
That'd be fun.
Catch me on the beach sipping a Mai Tai.
And Nick Delorier is the one who convinced them to come here.
Oh,
Danny, take the wheel.
I'm out.
I'm out of here.
Oh, that's Chuck Fletcher's last move. And like you see him like White Goodman on the couch, like, I put that team together. Oh boy. Well, on that note, I think it is time for Hoagie to give us his dad joke of the week.
thanks, John.
Hoagie's like, I've got a dad joke?
What does a nearsighted gynecologist and a puppy have in common?
Oh, God.
Oh God, here we go.
They both have a wet nose.
Oh.
That's not a dad joke.
It's a
Yeah.
bad
Got a little
joke.
naughty.
That's
was
what we
good.
call potty humor.
You like it?
That was good. That was good. I like it. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a great one to have on before our guests are later this week.
Dude,
Oh,
Well,
Freaking kids.
if you guys are watching, we won't have any of that Wednesday night. No. But before we plug this affiliates too, just to throw it out there as well, later this week, I'm going to be talking with a father and daughter duo here who are big hockey fans, big Flyers fans. Reminded me a lot of, my relationship with my mom. So it'll be cool to have them on to talk some hockey. John and Hoagie are going to be back talking prospects as well with the juniors coming up. Should be a good episode. We're going to have a bunch more content, but also if we're speaking content, check out our affiliates over at Flyers High and Wide, at Flyers HW on Twitter, as well as the guys over at 5 Minute Major Podcast. They're on Twitter at 5 Min Major Pod. And that's my spiel for now. Matt Casey, would you like to spell it out for us all?
Hey, it's CASCY on Twitter. I think
It's
that's
just
what-
Casey on Twitter.
Just Casey.
Just Casey.
No, I think I'm Pod Street Casey. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't purchase at Casey, like outright, from whoever had it before
Who's
you.
got it though?
Hoagie.
Street Hogs.
There it is. And Jen.
Yeah, you can find this podcast on all your various podcast listening receptacles, and I don't need to list them. Have a good night,
'Cause they're
everybody.
Right there on the ticker. Anyways, you can find me on Twitter at Pod Street Bob. John's on Twitter again at Pod Street Gove. All four of us.
Resurrection.
All four of us are on Twitter at Pod SD Bullies. And well, that's been it for us. Have a wonderful rest of your week, folks.
Bye now. Suck it up.